Could one phone call change the course of everything you hold dear? What happens when the person you trust the most turns their back on you? And when an institution built on trust collapses under the weight of betrayal? Stay with me till the end, because what you're about to hear will make you question everything. Some stories might shock you. Others might leave you speechless, but no matter what, stay calm. The truth about the crimes happening around us is more unsettling than you think. Welcome to True Crime IQ. Thank you, my viewers. Thank you for joining me as we unravel the chilling stories that keep us questioning the limits of trust, love, and betrayal. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated on our latest gripping tales. Stay tuned, because this is another story you won't forget. Some betrayals don't happen in an instant. They unfold in silence, hidden behind warm smiles and whispered promises. Williams and Vivian were the kind of couple people envied. The kind of love that seemed unshakable, built on years of trust, patience, and devotion. They had weathered storms together, the kind that would have torn weaker couples apart. Their greatest challenge? A child, or rather, the absence of one. For years, they had tried. Doctors, treatments, prayers. Hope would rise then fade. Over time, Vivian learned to live with the emptiness. And through it all, Williams was her rock. The husband who held her when the pregnancy tests came back negative. The man who wiped her tears and whispered, "It's okay. We have each other. That's enough." And she believed him. How could she not? His love felt unwavering. When others asked why they hadn't adopted or pursued other options, he would smile and say, "Because I married Vivian." Not just the idea of a family. A perfect answer. A perfect man. But perfection is a delicate thing. And sometimes, it's just an illusion. Vivian never questioned him. Not when he worked late. Not when his phone buzzed more than usual. Not when their joint account began to show unexplained withdrawals. Because love, real love, is built on trust. And trust means not asking too many questions. But what if love is only real when it's tested? And what if the test exposes a lie? Trust isn't shattered all at once. It begins with a whisper, a thought, a tiny shift in the air that you barely notice until it's too late. Vivian's phone buzzed. A message. "Hey Viv, did Williams travel? Thought I saw him today. Looked like he was with his sister or something." A simple text. Innocent, even, except for one thing. Williams didn't have a sister in that state. Vivian stared at the screen, reading the words again and again. A mistake. That's all it had to be. Maybe Miranda saw someone else. Maybe it was just a harmless misunderstanding. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to type a response. But before she could, another message appeared. They looked close, like family. Vivian's mind reached for an explanation, but none came. Instead, she heard his voice in her head, the way he always reassured her, the way he promised, time and time again, that nothing in this world could come between them. So she did what any loving wife would do. She let it go. She told herself it wasn't worth worrying about. That Miranda must have been mistaken. That Williams would never, could never, betray her after everything they had been through. She tucked the thought away, buried it beneath logic and faith. But once a seed of doubt is planted, it only takes time before it grows. Sometimes, lies don't always arrive with a bang. They slip in quietly, unnoticed at first. Williams walked through the door, a familiar smile on his face. He talked about his trip, details so vivid, so effortless. The conference went well. The meetings were productive. He even cracked a joke about how boring some of the speakers were. Vivian smiled, nodding at all the right moments. But something was different. It wasn't his words. It was the spaces between them, the pauses, the way he filled every moment with just enough information, never too much, never too little. A well-rehearsed performance. Days passed, and the shift in him became harder to ignore. More phone calls, always at odd hours. He never used to step away to answer them, but now he did. Withdrawals from their joint account, large ones. She clicked. Money, leaving their joint account. Thousands. Over weeks, months. And then, the final blow. Hotel receipts. Different dates. Different locations. All in her city. While she had been home, waiting, believing, loving, he had been here, with someone else. Her breath came slow, measured, as if reacting too fast would make it all too real. She set the phone down, stared at it. Silence filled the room. But inside her, there was nothing but noise. A storm of memories, of moments, of whispers in the dark, telling her she was safe, telling her she was loved. But love should never feel like this. She wasn't ready to break. Not yet. Because sometimes, knowing the truth isn't enough. Sometimes, you have to see it with your own eyes. Williams stood by the door, keys in hand, smiling the way he always did when he had somewhere to be. He kissed her forehead, just like always, and told her he wouldn't be late. A work gathering. A casual night out with colleagues. Vivian smiled back, said all the right things, played the part she was expected to play. But inside, she knew. She had seen the messages, the money, the receipts. Tonight wasn't about work. Tonight was about her, the woman behind the messages, the woman who wasn't his wife. So Vivian followed him. The drive was quiet, just the sound of her own breath, slow and steady, though her heart hammered against her ribs. She didn't know what she would find. She only knew that she had to find it. And then, she saw them. A restaurant, dimly lit. The kind of place meant for stolen moments and whispered promises. And there, at the corner table, was Williams, laughing, smiling, his hand resting gently on a woman's arm. Vivian froze. For a second, she thought, maybe this isn't real. Maybe this is all in my head. And then, she saw him. A boy. Small hands. Bright eyes. A giggle that reached across the room. The boy leaned into William's side, his little hands gripping his shirt. Williams wrapped an arm around him, pulled him close. A father's embrace. A 4-year-old. Maybe 5. Vivian's breath caught. The room tilted. Her mind raced, trying to find an explanation. But there wasn't one. For years. 4 years of late nights. 4 years of whispered reassurances. For years of lies. And all this time, he had a son, a family, a life that didn't include her. Her knees felt weak, but she couldn't move. She had thought the messages were enough. The receipts, the transactions, birthday gifts for his son, the long nights away. She had thought she knew. But this wasn't just betrayal. This was a life stolen, a love wasted, a truth buried. She had lost him long ago. She just hadn't known it. Until now. That evening, Vivian sat in the dimly lit room, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. The time for that had passed. The clock ticked. She waited. Williams would walk through the door at any moment, carrying the same easy smile, the same lies, the same man he had always been. And then, footsteps, keys jingling. The door opened, and there he was, smiling, pretending. He didn't know that his secrets weren't secrets anymore. Didn't know that tonight was the last time he would come home to her. Vivian lifted her eyes to him, her voice steady. After everything, you still lied. His smile faltered, a flicker of confusion. You had a whole family behind my back. A child. A life I never knew about. The words landed. Heavy. Unforgiving. Williams swallowed hard, reaching for an explanation. She didn't give him any room to utter a word. She continued, I know everything that you've been doing. The fake conferences, the hotel visits, the removing of money from our joint account to send to Kimberly. But Williams, how could you do this to us? He looked for the right words. A way to undo the truth that had already settled between them like a wall that could never be climbed. But there was nothing he could say. Nothing that could erase 4 years of deception. He tried anyway. It's not what you think, he whispered. But it was. It was exactly what she thought. Vivian rose slowly, her breath calm, her heart no longer pleading for answers. She had spent years believing in a love that never truly existed. A love that had been built on illusions and empty promises. Not anymore. I will not live with a lie, she said, her voice clear. I will not live with a cheat. Williams stood there, searching for something to hold on to. But she was already gone. Not physically. Not yet. But in every way that mattered. Vivian had already had enough. To her, there are some betrayals you can forgive. Others, you walk away from. The house was quiet now. There were no more arguments echoing off the walls, no more slamming doors or the sound of angry footsteps pacing back and forth. The emptiness felt both foreign and familiar. The weight of it seemed to settle in the corners of the rooms, yet there was a strange peace that accompanied the stillness. It was as if the house had exhaled, shedding the tension that had built up for so long. Vivian stood in the doorway of the living room, her fingers tracing the edge of the doorframe. Her mind wandered back to those moments when she had clung to the belief that love was about holding on. No matter the cost, no matter how much it hurt. She had given everything she had, convinced that endurance was the key. But time, as it often does, had revealed something far simpler, yet infinitely harder to accept. Love, true love, wasn't about endurance. It was about knowing when to leave. The divorce papers were signed. It was done. There was no going back now. She had expected the emptiness that followed, but what she hadn't expected was the feeling of relief that surged through her chest. It wasn't the kind of relief that came with letting go of something painful. No, this was different. It was the relief that comes when you finally stop fighting against the current and let yourself drift to where you belong. It was the relief of knowing that walking away was not a defeat. It was her victory. Vivian thought about the years she had spent questioning herself. Had she made the right choice? Had she missed something? Had she given up too soon? But as she stood in the silence of her house, she realized that those questions no longer mattered. The truth had settled in her heart, quiet and steady. She wasn't weak. She wasn't a failure. She was strong. And strength didn't always mean staying. Sometimes, it meant leaving. It was an act of bravery to walk away from something that no longer served you, to step into the unknown with nothing but the belief that something better awaited. She had walked away not because she couldn't endure, but because she had learned what true endurance meant. It meant protecting your peace. It meant refusing to let yourself become a casualty of a love that no longer existed. In the end, it wasn't about the years spent trying to make it work. It wasn't about the promises made or the hopes dashed. It was about the freedom she had given herself, the gift of walking away from the past and embracing the future with open arms. As we've come to the end of Vivian's story, we'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this intense, emotional story. Share your perspective in the comments below. Let's get the conversation. If you believe no one deserves to suffer betrayal like Vivian did, if you stand against deceit, lies, and the pain they cause, then show your support. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it. Because silence allows betrayal to thrive, but awareness puts an end to it. Don't let another person go through this alone. Stand with us. Stand for the truth. Every voice matters. And together, we can make a difference.